All right. Alexey, once again, thank you so much for being here. And you are a researcher, writer, and founder of New Science. It is an organization that allows scientists, thinkers to basically explore scientific research outside of the norms of traditional scientific processes, basically. So I just want to understand what led you to find New Science. Was it something that you personally experienced? Did you personally hit like a block from the traditional conservative academic sciences that led you to start New Science? Or is it based on something that you observed what's going on in the institution which led you to start New Science?
Right. I think I mean, a bunch of different things happened. The most the most important things for me were like just having a feeling that there is like, I guess, I don't know, entrenchment of the existing systems. Like I just had this feeling that like the existing institutions of science are like very like set in place, and they are set in place in ways that don't actually encourage good research, and in ways that are anti-meritocratic, in a way that filters out and like discourages the most talented people from participating in them, and that it's this Gargachuenian like credentials based system where like the competition is based on these like weird internal academic status games with like their own rules that are like very different from like the just like pursuit of science, from the rules that I would like about good science essentially. And so yeah, for me it was also, I think, like personal to some extent, where like I wanted to do science when I was younger, and I studied economics in undergrad, and I just had this feeling that of and I felt like very disillusioned reading economics literature, because I felt like the majority of papers in and the majority of researchers I knew just and they didn't care about like discovering new things, or like they cared about them like to some extent, but like it was more important to do something that like someone's colleagues liked, and that would get people in the top journals and get them jobs, than like do things that are actual, or like do research that like results in like actual knowledge being generated and things that are true. And yeah, so and since then, like I studied a bunch of biology, neuroscience, like just a little bit of physics, and I feel like every field of science that I look into, it's the same situation. Yeah, anyway, so like all of this, I think there is this combination of like having this feeling that like the really talented people get filtered out, that like academics fundamentally like just don't really care about truth, and me having this like personal feeling, oh, I feel like I really wish to be a scientist, and I felt like this system is just not set up for people like me to some extent as well.
Okay. Do you think, because the science institutions that we are talking about, they are major institutions in this world, right? I mean, they're not like small scale institutions or anything. They are the major scientific institutions that are running the world, that are basically telling us like what to believe and what not to believe, and what are the breakthroughs and everything. Do you think that maybe they are in a way pursuing the truth, but they want to gatekeep from the new researchers coming to the industry? Do you think that maybe they want to gatekeep a lot of what is going on for whatever reason? Do you think that could also be the reason? Because I don't think they are dumb enough to not follow, not go and like pursue everything. I mean, I think they are intelligent enough to understand like what are the possibilities of a certain research, and to understand like everything that is possible out of like I don't know, like researching about cancer or Alzheimer's or anything. I think they are smart enough to understand like all the possibilities of doing a certain research or everything. But I feel like they on purpose gatekeep everybody getting access to the what they find or their studies or something. Do you think that could also be the reason?
Yeah, I think I would say that it happens. I'm not sure if this is like people and like academics deliberately trying to gatekeep as much as it's, at least in my mind, it's almost like a natural thing that happens to these kinds of like systems and communities over time, where like academics have like their almost like special knowledge about the world, and they like can share this knowledge with with people, and but like they also like over time, I think it's then the analogy that I'm thinking here is like with doctors. Like there is nothing like that, like there is no like sort of like inherent reason why like you can't be treated by someone who doesn't have an MD if they're well qualified. Like it's not like physically impossible for this to be the case. Or
Yeah.
like with lawyers, right? Like Abraham Lincoln was the lawyer, like he never like went to law school,
Right.
right? And it's just that like professions just have a tendency, like any kind of like community or profession and specialized knowledge, I think has a tendency to like indeed like create these barriers for entry and to like to make it more difficult for like people outside the profession to enter, to gain the knowledge, to understand what's going on internally. And yes, I think like this is at least like the way I think about, for example, the like the PhD system that exists right now. Like I think like it started out as being like extremely different. It started out as like you could come into a university and present your research and like be granted a PhD to attest that you're a good scientist. And now it's like completely inverted, where like you are not a good scientist unless you went through this program, and like no matter like how much research have you done outside. And so, but I think again, like in my mind, it's not. I don't think like anyone like scientists did this deliberately. It's just kind of natural. It has that over time PhD has become this like mechanism for gatekeeping, and then like it was the easiest way to like almost like if it's very like for like for administrators or for bureaucrats, it's just like much easier for them to like decide if someone is a scientist or not based on like whether they have this credential or not. For the government, it's again like if we're talking about the US and the NIH, then like it's just much easier for the government to say that like we're just not going to give money to anyone who doesn't have a PhD, who doesn't have affiliation with academic institution, because like it genuinely like it probably does in fact like reduce the amount of like really bad research that's being done. But I do also think that the second order effect is that it really ends up like gatekeeping things in the long term and creating this insular community, and in the long term really not serving as well.
How old is New Science?
New Science is 4 years old now.
Okay. I mean, it's actually a very bold initiative, right? It's kind of like almost an attempt to challenge the traditional academic practices of how things are being handled from a science perspective. How different or like what would you, what is the way that you conduct? How do you conduct new science? Like what is the approach that you are taking in order to challenge the conservative method?
Right. So the thing that we're doing right now, it's been 4 years, but we're like still small and taking our time, like figuring out like exactly like how to scale this up.
But you already have like really prominent people on board, right? 4 years, yeah, it's a short time, but seeing the people that are involved, they are very prominent, very
Yeah.
credible people.
Yeah.
So which means it also shows the trust that these people have in this project in such a short period, like you said.
Yeah. No, we do have excellent advisors who I'm very grateful for, and some of them are in academia and are academics, and it's very brave of them to to be helping us out. But our approach right now, like at least like when I think about building new institutions of science, I always like what I think about is just like enabling people to do science. And enabling it always, at the end of the day, I think it's all about people and it's all about enabling people. And like the thing that we're doing is we're running fellowships, and we used to run the summer fellowship. Like we ran a 1 year fellowship where like we placed people like where we like gave people funding and connected them actually in academia with professors who would let them work on their own independent research and pursue their own projects. And some of these people were grad students, some of these people are undergrads. So we have a lot of people who are independent researchers, core fellows. And so the biggest thing that like we are doing is just whoever, like no matter what the credentials are, no matter like what the affiliation of someone is, like we like encourage people to apply and to submit their research ideas. And if it seems to us that they have potential, we try to support them whichever way we can. And yeah, and so that's what we're doing right now. We're probably going to be running more structured programs like the summer fellowship that we ran, a year-long fellowship that we run in the future. But right now it's more ad hoc. Like one of the big things that I think learned running the structured fellowships is that like everyone needs are just like very different. And so again, like if my goal is to, I think like long-term goals like build this like new community, build these like in big institutions and structures where people can pursue research, but like it does have to start with us just like figuring out, okay, what's the best way we can support people and help people to do science. And yeah, so that's what we're doing right now. It's like very ad hoc.
If you don't
Sometimes we
mind,
provide funding, sometimes community, sometimes both. Yeah.
I was going to ask if you don't mind answering, like, how do you get the funding for all this?
The funding mostly comes from philanthropists.
Okay.
Actually, I mean, exclusively it comes from philanthropists.
Okay.
We have people who are in tech, in finance, in crypto, like just otherwise, I know all kinds of people. We actually have some scientists who are donors. We have entrepreneurs. We have engineers.
All right.
Yeah.
That's really nice. I mean, again, like I said, for 4 years, I think in this field, that is science, 4 years is still a short time, but what you've managed to, the eyeballs that you've managed to raise is very impressive, to be honest. And also the cause of doing this is very impressive, especially in today's scientific climate with what's going on around the world. I think it is super important, like what you're doing. Just to kind of like go back in a line of why there is, because one of the things that I remember reading in your blog is about there is a pushback against the truth, against scientific truth. Do you think that, so this is how I see a lot of institutions right now, be it educational institutions, religious institutions, scientific institutions, I feel they're all heavily politicized at the moment. It's been for a very long time, but now it's just like out in the open that it's all been politicized and it's been controlled by, it is like heavily controlled, monitored, etc. And it's been politicized. And I feel like just like in regular politics, it is being controlled by a certain group of people, certain group of people who they get to decide what the world gets to see or not see, what is the truth that the world gets to learn or not learn. So that is how I see it. That's why I feel like that is how I see science now. Initially, I used to like think only, yeah, religion is like that. They're heavily politicizing religion, but now it's even science. Basically, they're just like trying to push science in the use it for politics, basically, which is a very sad thing because science is supposed to improve our overall life, and there's a lot of our life is dependent on the scientific research, basically, and it's kind of unfortunate to see how it's all being politicized at the moment.
Right.
One of the things, one of the very impressive articles that I read from your blog was about NIH. Like very important in my opinion. And for me personally, I was never aware of like the role of NIH before I read. I think you must have also read The Real Anthony Fauci by RFK Jr. Have you read that book by any chance?
No.
It's actually, but Anthony Fauci is the guy who actually basically told the world what to do during COVID. And RFK Jr., like Robert Kennedy Jr., he basically wrote like a book, very thoroughly cited book about like basically about how NIH funded by Anthony Fauci, who is funded by the pharmaceutical industry, basically buys and sells vaccines, and how they get to decide which vaccines get mandated, etc., and how they basically spend billions of dollars working on bioweapons in the name of we are doing vaccine research. So it's a very important thing. Like, what in your point of view, talking about like how the traditional like the scientific how the traditional science works and the pushback that you guys get, the industry gets, and everything, what do you think is the role of NIH here?
I guess the way I the way I'm thinking about this is I do think that the NIH is not is an institution that like we'd be better off abolishing and starting anew, as I mentioned in my piece.
Right.
I think it is indeed uh, like I think my problems are like manifold. I think the politicization is also like at least like the way I view the whole Fauci thing and COVID, like cover up of the funding that the NIH was providing for. I mean, it does look like right, COVID leaked from the lab, and it seems like it was in fact funded by the NIH, and like the whole cover up and like the efforts to the efforts to just deny the public the knowledge of what happened, I think is just horrible. And uh, I guess like the lens through which I view this though is still this larger institutional lens, where it's just kind of a natural thing that happens to these kinds of institutions, where if you like for the same reason that like you can't be uh, like a scientist if you don't have a PhD. It's like because it's like such a closed system. This is the same reason why the NIH is the kind like is able to I don't know this again like not let the public know about what it's doing and have this very insular politicized processes. And to me again I feel like it's all part of this like a larger thing. It's less about like just NIH being politicized and more about institutions just not being open to the public and institutions working. It's almost like a bureaucracy reinforcing itself for its own sake and doing whatever it can to protect itself from any kind of external threat rather than bureaucracy serving the public.
Right. Yeah. And also the fact that during this whole COVID drama, the number of people who are practicing medicine, the number of people whose licenses were removed, just for the fact of like they were saying something against those COVID vaccines, the number of licenses that were removed and everything. I don't know if anybody else has recommended this book to you, or if you have it in your reading list, but I would really, really recommend the book, The Real Anthony Fauci. It was such an eye opener. I mean, COVID is an important part of the book, but it is not the only thing about the book. There's also a lot into a lot of other vaccines, the famous ones, and how like the tests are conducted. I'm not into any horror books or something. I've never read any horror novels, but this, I bet like this one is like the most horrific thing like I've ever read. So it's I would like highly recommend, also because I would really like to know what is your perspective about the book, because it's heavily cited book. Like I said, there's like under every chapter, basically the book has like thousands of like publications and research papers linked to everything that is written, every claim that he has made. So I would actually really love to know like what you would think about the book. Um, what do you think, just shifting a little bit between the correlation between the relationship that with AI and science? First of all, like how close do you think we are to achieving AGI?
I'm very confused about this.
You're
And
confused?
yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure. I think I'm thinking about the impact of AI in science a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what the impact is going to be, and I'm not sure how close we are. I mean, the thing that like the thing that's clear is that AI is already having an impact on the world, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I use it daily. You're
Yeah.
probably using it daily.
Yeah.
Like it's, like there have been all kinds of like AI facilitated breakthroughs actually with AlphaFold, for example, and like in general, like with predict like predictive systems uh, are like very useful in,
Right.
in science. But at the same time, I with AGI, I think my current take, like I think I might change my mind on this in like 6 months,
Right.
because I feel like my take
Me
would
as
have been very
well.
different in 6 months.
Like my
But
perspective is always like changing. Like every 3 months, I feel very different. Some months I feel like,
right,
we still got time. We still got time for our species to be the way that we are. And some months I feel like whenever, like for example, when Google comes up with Willow, or Microsoft comes up with this chip that has like millions of qubits or something, I'm like, oh, wow, we're so close to this.
right,
It sometimes freaks
right,
me out. Sometimes I'm like, okay, about it.
right. I think my perspective on AGI is something like I don't think that people are like, or like humans as a species are generally intelligent.
Mm.
Like there are tasks that we just like can't do. Like I like right we're good at certain kinds of things. We're good at doing certain kinds of math, certain kinds of science. We
Right.
can like invent things, we can write, we can think.
Right.
But I know I can multiply like 2-digit numbers in my
Right.
in my head. I can probably do three if I really, really concentrate, but I'm probably going to fail a fair amount of time. Like 4 by 4,
Yeah.
like I can do it.
Yeah.
And so I think, I mean, and so this is I think my frame is that like like I as a person can like do certain intellectual things. I can't do other intellectual things. I can do certain like physical things in the world. I can't do other physical things in the world. Like the number of things that I can do and that like we as a species can do was enough for us to be able to jumpstart this whole thing that we have,
Yeah.
like the civilization and technology and science. And but it's still not general. Like in some fundamental way, it's not general. It's very limited. And
Yeah.
we have created tools that are much more intelligent than we in some
Yeah.
ways, and
Yeah.
much less intelligent than we are in other ways, right?
Right.
We have, I don't know, I always like to think of calculators. Calculators are incredible. Like
Right.
they're in some ways infinitely more intelligent than I am.
Right.
Like, and yet they're like completely unable to do a lot of other things.
Yeah.
There are chess engines, right? Like chess engines have become better than humans more than 20 years ago. And since then, like no human has ever been able to beat the chess engine, like a top chess engine. And yet they are not able to do anything else, right? And so the way I think about this is that AI is already much better than we at certain things, but it's also like still much worse than we are at other things. And I think that it is like we are going to be seeing strong AI where like AI can do like more and more things that we can do.
Right.
And do I think that it's going to be like general in a way that in a strong sense of the word? I think no. Do I think it's going to be able to do a lot of the things that we do? Yes. Do I think it's going to be like to do some of the things that we can do and like much better than we? Yes, and it's already
Right.
happening. In terms of so I think this is my take. If the question is like, will our lives become meaningless when like in 3 years or in 5 years because like AI is just going to take over the world?
Mm.
I don't think that's what's going to happen. I do think that AI is going to be like a tool that we use and a tool that amplifies our agency and a
Mm.
tool that helps us to achieve more and do more.
Mm.
And yes, AI is going to be like AIs and AI agents are going to be participating in an economy, but still like they're going to be directed by us. We're going to be the ones who will like decide what's happening with the world.
Right.
And I uh Yeah, we're the ones who are going to be in control. And with science again, like yes, AI is going to be helping a lot with science, maybe even do a lot of hypothesis generation and do much more experiments. But like at the end of the day, they're like fundamentally like we are the ones who are going to be directing AI to do
Yeah.
the kinds of research that we want to do. And yeah.
I mean, there are definitely benefits. We can be concerned about all we want, but there are definitely benefits of like AI being around. Just to kind of expand on that a bit, are you concerned about how dependent we are becoming on AI with every passing year? Because just like you said, we all are now using AI, and like all of us, like even people in school and like colleges and everything. Do you worry about how dependent we are becoming and how this is very likely to increase, considering how powerful AI will become, the AI technology will become, and so human beings will start to say, oh wait, so I can use now that I can use this app or this tool for this purpose. So the reliance on AI will kind of eventually increase. Does that like ever concern you? Because the reason I'm asking this is that just recently, I think like 1 or 2 weeks back, Microsoft released this paper on how over relying on AI. This is basically a study that they conducted with 300 or 400 people, and the people who over relied on AI, they had a decline on cognitive capabilities than the people who did not rely on AI. And considering a lot of us are now using AI, does this ever like concern you of how dependent we are becoming?
I don't feel concerned.
Okay.
At least the way, right, I may be wrong here, but I think my frame here is that uh, I'm dependent on my computer and my phone.
Right.
And how is this different from me being dependent on AI? Like I'm dependent on like this watch that I'm wearing,
Yeah.
dependent on the headphones. I'm I think yeah, I know I'm dependent on the restroom in my apartment working well. I'm going to be very upset. I'm going to be very lost if it goes out of commission.
Yeah.
But like, and I think at some extent it's natural for us to like it's kind of I think it's like
It's
people
part of
used
our
to
evolution.
well, not necessarily it's like people used to before writing, people used to memorize like entire epics, right? Like
Yeah.
people when I'm reading, so I'm reading Anna Karenina right now,
Mhm.
and there is like it used to be like very common for people to speak like three languages.
Mhm.
Just it was just like expected. But now that we are like there's just no need to like yeah, like it was expected for people to like memorize this like enormous amounts of like classical ancient
Yeah.
literature, and it's at some point we just decided we didn't really want to do it and we don't need to do it, and like probably like if you measure like people's ability to like memorize like really long pieces of text, then it has gone down. If you uh, uh, try to measure people's ability to learn languages or speak languages, it has probably gone down. If you want to measure people's ability to like calculate things in their head, again, it has probably gone down because we are reliant
Right.
on our tools
Yeah.
for doing this. And I think my perspective on this is that yes, we will in fact lose the ability to do
Right.
some of these mental tasks, so we're going to be worse at them. But in a way, it's kind of the great power of the human brain that it's so robust that
Yeah.
like we invent all of these tools to augment ourselves and we can
Yeah.
externalize them,
Yeah.
and then we can use our brain for things that make sense to do for us to do in the environment in which we live in, and we repurpose like the parts that we're like again doing these like calculations, memorization, and
Mm.
we instead like do this use tools to do these things, and then we use the freed up parts of the brain for other things that we want to do, right? I feel like this like it's
Right.
never like our brains are not going anywhere. We're just using
Yeah.
them. Well, maybe we repurpose parts of the brain for like TikTok and YouTube and video games, but hopefully we do also like repurpose them for other kinds of things. Like maybe I think it's not. I would not be surprised if like as a result of us like relying on AI or over relying on AI, we're going to become more creative in some ways, or
You
like
think
more
we will become
agentic,
more
or
creative?
yeah.
Okay.
I think I would not be surprised if this is
Yeah.
the result of us
Yeah.
outsourcing like the things again, like the more routine parts of our work,
Yeah.
and being able to augment ourselves with this more advanced technology, that we're
Yeah.
going to become more creative.
Yeah.
I
I,
think
I also think so, because I think it will allow us the space to be more creative, because creativity is not locking yourself in a box, right? If you're like a truly creative person, you're going to find some ways to express whatever it is that you want to express. But my concern also is more about like collectively, just talking about the whole world here, how many people have that capacity or the capacity or the mindset to adapt. That kind of like concerns me when I think about, like, because there are still like a lot of children, kids, like grown-ups around the world who still do not have a complete grasp of what AI is, or even what they could generally achieve just by having a laptop in front of us. People like you and me, yeah, but there's still a huge population who have not adapted to it, who do not know how this can be utilized. I sometimes like worry about that. How are we collectively then? What would happen to those kind of people? And for us, I am worried because I mean, it's not worried, but what I don't, by this point, I don't think I am worried. By this point, I think I have made up my mind. I think this is just part of our evolution. Just like you said, calculator was there. We've still not lost our mind in spite of having a calculator. We still have a running brain, basically. And I think with AI, like you said, I think probably one part would be completely dedicated to, would be taken over by AI, but probably the other part would be dedicated to actually still letting us survive the way that we need to like survive. But I think it's a very interesting period. Sometimes I think it's like it's very lucky to be alive at this point in human history to actually see all this like unfold. Did you see this scientific this paper by New York Times where they published in a research paper? New York Times did not publish it, but basically it was another scientific research front that published that AI alone single-handedly was able to do a lot of medical tasks, like performing chest X-rays and doing some diagnosis on patients and everything. And AI alone did it much better that when compared to AI combined with a doctor's supervision or like assistance. And this was actually like super startling, because this is kind of like saying, hey, doctors, like move away. AI can do like a better job than you. But then there was like actually like a lot of pushback on this that basically the science frontier, which basically did this research and published it. I think it's called JAMA Network. They basically came up to this conclusion that AI alone can perform better tasks in a medical environment based on just 6 experiments or 6 tests, which is a ridiculously low amount for a scientific research. And for them, for a credible resource like them to publish something like this, and for New York Times, for a much more credible mainstream media to actually take that piece and then like to put out like this, what do you think, what do you think about that? Like I want like just like to split it in 2 parts. What do you think about like AI basically assisting doctors into like their claim that AI can basically take over tasks, medical tasks, and they can do it better compared to like the real doctors? And the second part of it is that what do you think about like these scientific institutions, like these magazines, etc., who take on a very weak research, and then to like basically shout out to the world that this is what is happening in AI or in the science field right now?
Mhm. Um, I'm not familiar with this paper specifically. I have seen results uh, that suggest indeed that AI, like by itself, is better than like humans or humans assisted by AI and performing certain medical tasks. It seems I feel like my perspective here is pretty similar on like the whole AGI thing, where uh, a lot of the stuff that doctors are currently doing, like AI is going either is already better than them at doing, or is going to be better than them at doing, and doctors will resist that for a fair
Yeah,
amount of time.
yeah.
But at some point they will adapt and they will like we will integrate AI into our processes. Doctors will find other things to do, and things that AI. I don't mean that like we're not going to have human doctors. I think that maybe we'll have fewer of them, maybe we'll have more of them, but like we will find like doctors will find things to do that AI can do, and um, yeah, I think it's again, it's going to be the case for something. It's not going to be the case for other things. Uh, in terms of JAMA paper, again, I haven't seen that paper unfortunately, but uh, yeah, like I think medical journals are actually especially bad at publishing like all kinds of like weekly supported studies,
Mm,
studies with not enough data, studies that yeah, just like should have never been published.
right.
And if yeah, if they did 6 tests and found then that on some of them AIs are better than humans at doing science, then that's really reasonable. Depending on their framing, I think it could either be like extremely reasonable or extremely unreasonable. It's like what they were saying was that like that's it, human doctors are done. That would probably be unreasonable. But yeah, fortunately, I haven't read that paper.
Yeah. uh, Speaking about like how science is basically presented by the mainstream media, one of another impressive article by you is by Matthew Walker. So he
Mhm.
is a professor, neuroscience professor, sleep, s- uh, who studies on based on sleep, and he works at Berkeley, if I'm not wrong, right now. And I have not read, and he published this book, Why Sleep Matters. Yeah, Why Sleep Matters. I have not read the book, but I have listened to a lot of interviews, lectures, TED Talks, podcasts from him on this particular topic. Absolutely like wild claims on how like not getting enough sleep like supports like people getting like falling towards cancer, or how it affects the mortality rate and etc and everything. Very wild claims. But so this is something before I read your article. This was my understanding before I read your article. Just my personal opinion, I value sleep a lot because I think it differs from each. I personally function very well when I have like proper 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And I physically and mentally see the impact of not when I don't get enough sleep. Like, I don't just like perform better. I'm not in a good mood. Like I can't think better. I can't write better, etc., etc. So personally, this is not just like not like in the recent years. I've always been this way. I need that good amount of sleep to basically be able to function and everything. So for somebody like me, it is very easy to get convinced what he said was like completely true, saying that not getting enough sleep, if you don't get enough sleep, you are more likely to get cancer, or you're more likely to get a heart attack, or you're more likely to die early, etc. But then your article, it was very thorough, and a couple of things that you pointed out. One of the graphs that you presented so beautifully is that people who sleep 4 hours or less than 4 hours, and people who sleep for 7 hours or more than 7 hours, they basically have the same rate of mortality rate. No difference at all. Have you like debated with anybody on the other side of this topic, or like have you like with this kind of, because I know it was a very well received article, and you in fact reached out to the university asking for notes on one of the
Someone else did that on my behalf, but yeah.
yeah. But have you debated on this with anybody? Like, did you get a chance to debate on this with anybody?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time talking to people about this and debating people like with
Yeah,
all kinds of views on sleep. I think that uh I still stand by everything behind
yeah,
uh by everything I wrote in this article, it seems that, I mean, I agree that sleep is very important.
Yes.
There is no question about that.
It's good we have to point it out. Sleep is still very important, no matter which side says what. Sleep is, anyway, you got to sleep as a human.
Yeah, the problem I have with the book, and at the same time, like I slept I think maybe 6 or 7 hours today. I'm not actually sure when I fell asleep. But like what I'm really against is exaggerating evidence and like falsifying evidence and like misleading the public about like what the science says. This is what my article is about, first of all.
Yeah.
It's not about sleep not mattering. It's about like the public being misled by Matthew Walker
Yeah.
and by his book. And yeah, no, this is this is what makes me personally very upset. Like I would have no problem if he like faithfully cited the literature and was talking about like what things actually are, and he was talking that yes, it is very important. But it's the fact that he like misrepresents the science so blatantly is what like I personally find most triggering.
Yeah. It is very shocking because he is a very reputed professor from a very reputed university. I
Indeed.
really wonder how come they go about it. Like how is it even like allowed? How is it even allowed to publish a book with a book that claims to be based on scientific proof and everything with such incomplete citations, incomplete references? Like because this is a very I feel like we need to talk about this because we now have we live in a world where a lot of information that we get from, we don't necessarily get by sitting in front of a person. We get through social media, through books and everything, through the things that we just scroll around in TikTok and Instagram, etc. Or we get books like this who are proclaimed researchers and professors, etc. How is this like allowed? Like how is this allowed, and how as a general, like I'm part of like the general public, I don't have a scientific background or anything. How do you think we should then approach books like this? How do you think we should approach contents like this when there are so many reputed people who publish articles or books such as this?
Right. Um, I think well to answer the first part of the question, there is again to me this all of this like refusal of like broader like neuroscience community, say like neuroscience researchers to acknowledge any of this, to the refusal of UC Berkeley to acknowledge any of this, the refusal of any like serious academic institutions to acknowledge the issues is more of a symptom of again like of institutions of science that are really set in their ways, and that again that like they have like bureaucracy working for the sake of bureaucracy. Like Matthew Walker is part of the community. He's part of the community of academics. He's part of the community at UC Berkeley. He's he is a part of them, and their job now is like the job of institutions of science today is to defend one of their own. And without extremely strong public pressure, they will not do anything about it. They will not discipline him. They will not kick him out. He will not suffer any
Consequences.
any yeah for misrepresenting science and
Right.
for lying to the public and for
Right.
like falsifying data.
Right. And also he is being represented from like very other reputed like podcaster. For example, he's been on Andrew Huberman, basically, who is considered to be like a super vital source on all science-based things. So they when you give a platform, especially on this subject based on the book that he has written, it really confuses me. Like, okay, me as a person who has no science background, it is easy for me to fall into this trap of taking this. But how come people like I have not, like other people like who are fellow scientists, who are fellow researchers, etc. How come they did not see this? How come they did not find this loopholes in the book?
I think a lot of people did. It's just that people maybe didn't care that much, or because if you think about it, like I was in a very unusual position in life where I studied some biology and neuroscience, and I, I studied economics before, and I spent a fair amount of time thinking about like specifically about this area and how experiments and how good experiments would be designed and reading the literature. And so like I came into reading the book with already like, and so like I realized that the book was terrible like literally within the first paragraph of reading the introduction. Like it was very 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 obvious that like the
Okay.
kinds of scientific claims the author was making were like impossible to substantiate, and that there must be something very deeply wrong. But I think it was only possible for me because of the background I had. And if you think about it, most of the people who have that background, like they are in academia, they are doing science, and they first, like I wasn't employed at the time. I didn't really have a job. I didn't have anything to do. I could afford to spend a long time writing this like big thing about how bad the book is. And most of the people who like have the right expertise just don't really have the freedom. They probably have jobs, and they're in grad programs where they need to publish papers. And so I think this is probably, and then so there's this thing where like just lack of time. And the other thing is I am right, like because I was outside of the institutions,
Right.
I was independent, I was outside the community, I could afford to criticize them.
Yeah.
And again, like I got a fair number of emails
Yeah.
from people, from neuroscientists, from professors and grad students and postdocs who were telling me that yes, like I read the book and I was horrified by what was in the book, like and I couldn't say anything or didn't want to say anything because the
You
author,
somehow
Matthew
have
Walker,
ties with
is
the
very,
community.
yeah, like because he is very big. He's he's on the peer review panels for granting for grant funding. He
Okay.
is he reviews he's on in big on he decides like to a significant extent he decides like who's going to make it or not. And criticizing him is dangerous. Like it might, like you criticized him one day, next day he's on your grant grant review panel and he is
Wow.
going to not give you the funding. And
Wow.
so yeah, this is, I think this like kind of touches on another topic where I think like the system of peer review
Yeah.
that's dominant in existing science, where like your journal articles are like evaluated by peer review, your
Yeah.
grant, your funding is decided by peer review. It's a system that very strongly discourages criticism internally. It's a system that rewards politics and rewards like being a nice person rather than doing what's right.
Okay.
And yeah, and I think again like the way I think about like everything that happened, I think Matthew Walker, I don't really feel like I'm very upset about the book, but I don't feel like I don't think he's evil. I think he's probably like a good
Yeah.
person fundamentally. I think he
Yeah.
really cares about sleep, but
Yeah.
the way that and he wanted to let people know that like sleep is really important. He
Yeah.
doesn't really care about it. And
Right.
but the way, and in a better world where like the way again science and academia works in a way that doesn't discourage this kind of criticism, like someone would have like pointed out that like no, like you shouldn't exaggerate this kinds of things way before, and none of this would have happened. And it's oddly because the system is so messed up that like
Right.
it all was able to happen. And then afterwards, like the system is now protects him and like discourage, like protects the insiders from the outsiders, even
Right.
though nominally the system is designed to serve the outsiders and designed to serve the world and the public,
And
and is
when you
funded by the public to a very large extent, of
right.
course.
And I think once you're inside the community, you can't really criticize each other. Rather, you just have to nod, and so that because you have you probably your research work is tied up with the other person saying yes or no. So you just have to like keep your mouth shut and everything.
Yep.
So
Yep.
and probably just like you said, I mean, like even I don't think like he's evil or something. And also the primary message that sleep is important. Yeah, it is. I don't think there is anything wrong with the message itself, but how the message is presented and with all the very bold claims that does not have proper references to it or anything. in given that this is how this is the kind of like world that we live in, where we, again, like I said, we have like podcasters and professors, etc., who are now able to publish books based on a small there maybe there were like a couple of tests that probably one or two tests that showed like, yeah, this person had cancer because she did not sleep for like a very long time or something. But at any case, how do you think a general public, like somebody like me, how do you think we should approach the news these days? Because this is
Oh, you
also
should not believe anything you read. That's that's the only thing that that's the attitude that I take personally.
yeah,
I think
question
just by
everything.
default, like yeah, like by default, like trust, like trust, like you know yourself that sleep is very important for you, right?
Yes.
Like you
Yeah.
don't need some guy on a
No.
podcast like who claims to be a fancy respected professor to tell you that sleep is important. Like when you like you know it's important for you, you know whether you need 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or any other number of hours of sleep per night, right?
Right.
Like you know when you eat the food, you know which food makes you feel good and which food
Right.
doesn't makes you feel bad. You
Right.
know, like all of these things that like we really uh, like are really important for us in our lives. I think like at the end of the day, we can either either we know what's good for us or not, or we can experiment ourselves. So like
Right.
I've done an experiment where I actually like I was really curious what's going to happen to my mental abilities if I just really restrict my sleep, and I slept 4 hours a night for 2 weeks. And first of all, I felt horrible. I never want to do it again. Like it's just terrible. But second, like on the intellectual mental test that I did
Yeah.
really say decrease in performance. And so like I'm
You
not
had a
sleeping
decrease in
4 hours a night.
performance? Sorry, can you repeat
I
again?
did not say decrease.
Oh, you did not. Okay.
Yeah, but on the test that I picked, and again, like I was very transparent in my test that I actually explicitly wrote that like guys, you should probably like not take this like super seriously because
Right.
I am very motivated now by this
Right.
whole sleep saga and I kind of want to show that. And
Yeah.
but I was like I explicitly acknowledge this like in the summary that like this is like my personal bias and
Yeah.
like and I did my best to like I pre-registered the analysis that I would do. I did my best to collect the data like well and truthfully, and like to document everything that happened. And I like almost fell asleep at some point, and I like documented this as well, and I told about my biases. And I wish that like and as long as like again we exist in the world in which scientists were doing that actually 100 years ago, 150 years ago. If you read like the journal Nature from like
Yeah.
1920, then like scientists, the language scientists would use would be like this. They're like, oh, I was like hanging out, like thinking about something, and then I came up with an idea, and then like there would be like the whole context. There would be like whatever like the personal thing. But the world in which we live in which science is, and it's just this like weird bureaucracy existing for the sake of bureaucracy thing, and where scientists like cannot physically like if a scientist tried like if I were trying to publish my experiment in a journal and I was trying to write like I'm biased about this because I have this like personal feud with the guy who really like sleep and I kind of want to prove him wrong. So like
Yeah.
you should probably like this guy. And so I'm doing my best, but you should like take this into account. Like
Yeah.
I bet like they would make me take this out. They would be like,
Yeah.
no, this is not allowed. And
Yeah.
I think again, as long as we live in the system where scientists, you can't criticize scientists
Yeah.
in the system in which like you should just not really you should not trust anything you read.
Yeah.
And if you're curious about something, right, like you can if you're reading a book and it's the scientist wrote it, you can actually now maybe that it's the year 2025. I wrote this thing in 2019, so a lot has changed since then. I think it's now you can probably ask. I think ChatGPT could be quite helpful actually.
Mm.
Just like if you're reading something and you're think some kind of claim and you can ask ChatGPT like what do you think about it, and like can you like what is the strongest evidence against it, and like is this a good experiment. And I think actually ChatGPT is not perfect, but like I find it at least like I use deep research quite a bit, and I find it
Right.
helpful like for my
Right.
personal like evaluation of evidence. So
Right.
this is at least like one thing that we could do like when we're reading news and we're reading about science. But like I'm personally also like so like we like I don't really have expertise in chemistry. Like I
Right.
know just like a tiny amount of physics. I don't actually know much biology. I'm not actually like very like I don't actually know much science. Like right. And so for me, a lot of papers that I would read, a lot of like scientific news that I would read, I also am completely lost and I don't really know like if it's true or not.
Mm.
And the only thing that I find helpful is to just like not really believe anything I read
Yeah, and
unless
I
I
think
like.
like in this day and age, it's that is for just about everything. Whatever you're reading, people don't believe immediately. Like look around, look into like other alternative sources or like like contradicting the sources that are contradicting what you read, and then like come to your own conclusion. And especially, I think when it comes to like health, just to like make for whoever listening to make it clear, sleep is still important. Please don't not sleep like for like for like don't go without like a proper sleep for like weeks or months, and don't normalize that, still get some good amount of sleep and stuff. It's really funny, like how did you do it? Did you like have like yeah, like did you like set your alarm like to wake up at like 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. in the morning, and then just force yourself to like sit up?
Yep, very, yeah, this is basically exactly what happened.
Wow, that takes a
I
lot of discipline to just for science basically.
for science, yes, no, and I really, I mean, I was really curious what would happen, and it was really hard. I like almost failed several times. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. What would you say is a properly researched, researched and published science article? Because we now have peer reviews and everything, but peer reviews have been around for a long time. And peer reviews are mostly done by people who are maybe sometimes like yes men, like we said, like probably they are within the same community. They don't want to go against each other, so they just want to like let go of anything that's wrong with it, and then just like push it through. What according to you is or should be a properly researched scientific paper?
Uh, I think the thing that matters to me the most is transparency. Like that, like the I'm actually okay with people publishing things they're not very confident about and publishing things that they're not sure if they're true or not. Of course, like I wish like everyone's like they're like best research and like spend as much time as possible. But like the thing that I care much more about is like people just acknowledging uncertainty and acknowledging whether like but what they're doing might not be like entirely true for one reason or another.
Hmm.
And this is what I don't see in like academic papers today. That's what I see is like extremely discouraged in academic publications today because you really want to be selling your results as much as possible.
Hmm. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but for me, it's yeah, it's there is also like there is transparency, there is the rigor, but these kinds of things are kind of difficult to define. There is rigor in uh, I think it kind of comes down to like whether like the person truly is trying to discover some kind of like truth about the world versus the main reason they're doing it is because they need a publication and they need to get a job
Hmm.
and everything comes downstream of that.
Hmm.
And you are if people who are doing science are primarily driven by like they need to publish papers to get jobs, then like we're not going to have good science. And if they're primarily uh, driven by the desire to do good science, then we're going to see good science.
Right. How did you get into science? Like at what age,
Uh,
like time did you think, hey, you know what, this is where I belong, this is what I should be pursuing?
um, I I think I've just always been interested. I know I've always been interested in like asking like how the world works, and I like to read a lot, and I wanted to be a physicist when like I was in high school,
Hmm.
and yeah, I think I know it's just kind of like a natural curiosity about how the world works, uh, and uh, yeah, I know it's just been a lifelong interest of mine.
Hmm.
But I think it stems from some kind of like more basic curiosity about the world and like wanting to know how things work, and like science, of course, is like how,
The way to
how we know how like so many
understand the
things,
world.
yeah, the way to understand the world and the way to know how things work.
Yeah. You, first of all, like we did not bring this up, but you're originally from Russia.
Yeah.
Where in Russia were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Moscow,
All right, and
I went to the university there as well.
okay, you write like, but before I jump into that, like, how different do you think these two countries approach science? Because now you're in the States, you're in Boston, if I'm not wrong.
Yep.
How
In San Francisco right now.
San Francisco, sorry. How different do you think these two countries approach science, Russia and United States? But because if I'm not wrong, at least from my understanding, US is still like the front runner in terms of like the science and tech. I mean, they are the capital of these two industries. But how different do you think Russia approaches science, and what do you think is holding either of the country back or forward, or moving it forward?
Right. I'm not sure if there is fundamental difference in approach, I guess. I think there is both, like, Russia has like a very strong scientific history and scientific community, and I think has contributed to science a lot over the centuries. I think the US is obviously a difference here and is the country that drives science the most today. So in terms of attitude, I think the problems that Russia faces are like not really like they're not as much a scientific problem, or like the scientific problems come out of like other kinds of political problems and lack of like more broadly Russia is just not as rich of a country as the US, and the population is smaller. There is like the most talented people who would have been doing science, they usually want to go somewhere else, either to Europe or to the US. So there's a lot of brain drain. And like the politics like make it very difficult because I personally haven't been to Russia in a very long time. I don't know if I'm going back anytime soon or ever. And I know a lot of people who, again, like uh, because of the war, like who have just left Russia and are probably never coming back or not coming back for a very long time.
Right.
And like so many collaborations have been broken. And so I think,
Right.
again, like this is, but it's all of this, I think like maybe it's actually like a lot of like what, again, the big reason why I'm not in Russia is because I realize that like no matter what I do, like all of the politics and whatever the people at the top will want to do is still going to dominate my life in a way, and will like might break my life and make like as it has broken the lives of like so many people already. And in a way, this is like this is like what's so different about America, where like I think your life like actually like belongs to you.
Right.
And yeah, but anyway, so like the question
And
of like
you are
science in
still
Russia,
able to like
it's not really
express,
about,
in spite of the politics that is going on in the States, you are still able to excel in whatever industry that you want to excel in, science or tech
yeah,
or whatever.
exactly,
Irrespective of politics still being like the big front in America as well.
exactly.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Right.
No, of course, like whatever, like so many things are happening in politics in America, but
Right.
like at the end of the day, there is also like enormous amount of opportunities, like regardless of whatever is happening in politics. And it's in a way that's just like not true in Russia, in a way that like in America, the government, like if you are not dependent on the government, like you are, I think the government funded science is experiencing a lot of problems, but like if you are not doing things that are dependent on the government and that are not dependent on like who is currently in power, like you can just do your own thing. And you can do your own thing to like much, it's not, of course, like you still have to follow rules and regulations and all of that, like sometimes it is affected by politics, but like the difference is just dramatic compared to Russia, and I think compared to most other countries in the world, where in Russia, like you can be trying to do your own thing and you're still like and like just completely by yourself and like not interacting in politics, not in government, like you're still going to be fucked up. You're still like it's going to find a way to like destroy whatever you're trying to do. In a way
They're
that's
still going to use
very
politics to
different.
suppress any voice, basically. Which for me, this is very confusing and very it's very shocking to me here because Russia, I mean, it's not like it's a very powerful country. Russia has still some of the best thinkers, writers, etc. And for me, and I think Russia is definitely Vladimir Putin or Russia, the country in general. It's not it's not a dumb place. It's not like a dumb country. It doesn't have a dumb leader. And I think I would like to believe that they are very well aware how important science and technology is important for a country's growth or for the country's position in this world, because it is what it is. I mean, whoever is running fast with technology and science, etc., they are very well positioned in this world, and it is very important to position themselves with with the way that world is going. And so it is very surprising for me how a smart and powerful country like Russia does not think about that, does not think about how suppressing the bright minds that it produces, the kind of impact that it will have, the kind of how it will weaken its position in the world, like going forward, and because while the other countries like US or China and other like developing countries are like pushing so fast on science and technology. Have you like thought about this? Like, why? Like, isn't it important that you guys like push your own citizens to be the best in their talents and skills? Have you thought about that? Like, why?
Well, I consider myself American more than Russian now, so I wouldn't speak for my guys, and I very much this uh, looking forward to spending my career in America and my life in America. But I think for Russia, it is it's just not. I mean, the government just has other priorities. And that's what it is. Like, it's more important for Putin to like take control of Ukraine to the extent that he can than like anything happening in science. And like ultimately, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know how, if that mentality is a good thing long term. Or
I
not.
mean, obviously, it's not good long
Yeah.
term, but it is what it is.
Yeah, right. Speaking of Russia and Russian thinkers and writers, I am reading my first Russian literature right now by Dostoevsky, the Karamazov brothers. It is my first Russian literature, my first Dostoevsky, and I'm still in between. I still have like at least like 40% left in the book and everything. This is the full. I read a lot. I read like a lot of books, but this, like, usually when when we are reading a book that is like so immersive in the way that it is written or the story, you usually tend to feel like you are walking around in those characters shoes, like as if like you are in their mind, feeling or going through whatever thing that they're going through. But this is the first time I'm experiencing reading a book and I feel like those characters are in my head, like it's the other way around, like they get inside your head. Like, have you like, I mean, I think it's a dumb question to ask, but have you obviously must have read like a lot of Dostoevsky?
Yeah, I've read Brothers Karamazov and Demons, and the books have been very influential for me.
In what way?
I think I started to take, for me, like I was not really thinking about Christianity until I read them, and these were the books that made me start to think about Christianity very seriously.
All right.
And yeah, and I read them when I was, I think, in my first or second year of college. And yeah, so for me, they have been very influential, and I have been thinking about Christianity like and religion much more seriously since then.
But would you then consider yourself to be a religious person?
I think so. Yeah, like much more so than before. Like before that, like when I was growing up, I would not consider myself religious at all.
Wow.
Like I think I very
And this
much
book
like
had
I
an
go to
impact on.
church. Yeah, I started going to church after reading Brothers Karamazov and Demons.
At what
Like I
age did
just
you read
felt
the
that
book?
I think I was 18 or 19.
Wow.
But then, like for the first time in my life, after reading these books, I felt like I think I was 17 or 18. For the
Yeah.
first time in my life, after reading them, I felt like I want to go to church.
Yeah. Wow. That's oh, I mean, especially when a book impacts you from a religious perspective, then it does mean a lot to a person. right? Because for somebody who never took religion seriously, and then you read Dostoevsky, and then you take religion seriously, that's a very big influence, really. What would be, do you have any other recommendations of Dostoevsky? This is just like my first book. What do you think should be, like, for example, my second book?
Um, yeah, I think Brothers Karamazov, The Gambler.
The
I'm a
Gambler?
big,
Okay.
big fan of this novella. Notes from the Underground.
Huh. Okay.
Um, these are the three things. I think Demons is also excellent.
You obviously read a lot of books, right? If I'm not wrong.
I sometimes read books. Yeah.
But we don't have like a list of books that you read. It would be really nice to have your list of recommendations of books in your blog, maybe.
Oh, I do have it in my
You
on my
do?
blog. Yeah, a list of my favorite books.
Okay, then maybe I missed it. Your blog is like an encyclopedia, because when I click on something, there are like 15, 20 links, and then each one of them leads me to another link, another page, another site. It's brilliant. Like I want to talk to you about your writing as well, but I also want to get into something. You have been very vocal about your journey with depression and mental health.
Mhm.
Have you? I am hoping that you are not in the same place anymore in terms of like your mental health and everything. You're obviously doing much better, and things like, and you've overcome a lot of negative thoughts around that you went through. Have you thought about it? Because I went through a period of, like, when I was like a teenager, I went through a lot of this period of like heavy depression and everything. And only recently, like I was like last couple of years, I started to think about like what was the reason that I was like depressed, and what changed? Why am I not anymore? And everything. What have you thought about it? Like what was it that actually took you down that road?
I think it I think it was a combination of um just feeling like not in control of my life and like not being able to do anything I wanted to do and not being supported. Yeah, I think it was like when in high school I felt like I didn't really have any real friends.
Right.
I couldn't do like I was trying to take like online classes, I was trying to learn things, I was trying to participate in things, and I was just like never able to do any of these things. And I was just like really addicted to video games and couldn't control my behavior. I
Mm,
felt unsupported by my parents.
mm.
And although I think like they were doing their best to support me, but I think like yeah,
But
for
you
one
learned
reason or
that
another,
at a
it did
very
not.
later stage that they were just doing their best.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they of course they were doing their best, but like it was not like it was they were not able to help me.
Right.
And so I think there's this combination of just like not like feeling alone and like not in control of just, I mean, it's very depressing to be in that kind of state where you're just alone, can't do anything.
Mm.
Uh, so yeah, but eventually, I went to college. Actually, it was my mom who encouraged. Like I was so depressed that I didn't want to even apply for colleges. I wanted to just give up and spend and just play video
This was
games
when
and
you
not
were
do
in
anything else.
Moscow, right?
Yeah, I was like 16 years old,
Okay.
and my mom and I was graduating from high school, and my mom told me that like that she like she persuaded me to apply to at least like somewhere, to apply to at least some college, and I as a result of this, I did apply to one college, and I ended up going there, and I think it ended up being like
What did
extremely
you
good for me.
what did you like study? Like what did you major in?
I majored in, well, my diploma says economics and mathematics,
Okay.
but it's kind of like major in economics, minor in mathematics.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Anyway, and like going to college, I think was very good because I started to go outside, and it was like I started, like I discovered like I was able to work in the university library.
Right.
I met a lot of people, and I got friends, and I was starting to see that like I was starting to be able to do things. It's very good for me.
Yeah. I mean, it is a very bold move to be able to share so much of those details in your blog, because it takes like a lot of strength to do that. It doesn't come easy, to share
It
such a
was a very
personal.
scary thing to it was
Yes,
a very scary thing to publish.
it
Yeah.
was a very scary thing for me to read. So, even though it was like your story, because probably you will find something that you can relate to, and it like triggers like, okay, like what you went through, what the reader goes through, and things like this. Well, how did you like decide that, like, okay, let me just like share it to the world, like, um
Uh, I think I was just trying to, I don't know, I just thought that it might be helpful for other people in similar situations because I thought that like if I read this like from someone else, I just thought it might be really helpful for me mentally. And
right.
that's what I was thinking about. And I thought that like it would, yeah, this was the main motivation. Like I just, and since then, like people have in fact, like for a number of people have told me that like it was important for them to read this and to see like what I went through and it helped them like to understand what they're going through. And yeah.
How old is
I
the
think like I'm in general, like the stuff that I'm trying to publish on my blog is I'm trying to figure out like what would I like to have read,
Right.
and then like if I
I've seen what you've written about that. It is a very good take on it. You want to write something that people would, for sure by the end of it, that people who are going to gain some value out of it, and people, it's going to make people, look at your other work and everything. That's a very good thought process, honestly, in writing. Yeah. How long have you been writing?
uh, well my website, my current blog, I've been writing for almost 10 years now. I
Wow,
started
that page is
2015.
10 years old.
Yeah.
Wow, very impressive. And it's like I just like previously said, it's like an encyclopedia of sorts, because it doesn't just have about science. There's also a lot about productivity, about like why you should start a blog, and there's about AI, etc., a lot of things. Can I ask about your? So I recently started writing on Substack. This again has been. I have this. I'm this kind of person who has goals and shit, but then I postpone and postpone and postpone out of, because of a lot of insecurity, or like, okay, maybe I'm not like, I did not master this topic, so should I even be doing this, should I even be writing about this, or something. But then like I've kind of reached a point where, if you're not going to do it now, like when, just like put yourself out and let's see just what happens. But and I figured out, like, the more that you write, the more you put out, it just gets comfortable, your voice gets a little bit more clearer. And writing especially has been, I'm really seeing how important writing is, because it is very important just to have control of your own thoughts, or to be able to structure your own thoughts, especially if you're somebody who has a lot of things going on inside your head, and you're like wildly curious and reading this and that and everything, but without any proper structure, without knowing how to really communicate. And I think writing is a great thing. It's kind of like it's like as of like looking at your own mirror. Sometimes I write things and then I wonder, wait, is it really how you feel? Isn't that stupid, or isn't that not good? What you're thinking? So writing has been like, it's definitely like a very good pursuit. But what is your writing process, considering you write about a lot, and a lot of topics you're not exactly like an expert at or something, but you provide your perspective. What is your process like? How do you just like sit down to write? Do you have, like, for example, for me, when I get some ideas, I just like put stuff on my voice notes, and then I go and I build up on it when I write. So what
Yeah.
is your process?
Uh, I don't really have a process.
You don't?
Uh, no,
Okay.
it's it's different every time. I have been able like I tried to create some kind of process over the years many times, and I always fail at that. It's sometimes I manage to make it like a thing that like for some number of hours every day I write, and I write until like I'm done with the piece. Sometimes I do it like one that I write 1 hour first thing in the morning. Sometimes I am just don't really have anything else to do and I'm right. Sometimes I know I talk to someone and it really inspires me and I go home and I spend several hours writing nonstop. Sometimes it's late at night. It's just I have not been able to like create a process really, and I think that yeah, like if it's a really big piece, then obviously like I just keep returning to it, and but even then, like sometimes I get really obsessed, and with some of my larger pieces, yeah, I spend like a month or two just like not really thinking about anything else except for them, and uh, yeah, but no, if like I don't really have a process. Maybe I'll get a process at some point later. But so far, I think the closest thing to having a process that I have for writing is that, yeah, well, I haven't been very good at this recently, but I just try to publish something every month,
Right.
and that's, yeah. I
Mm.
think this helps me. And sometimes I like create because writing also you don't really have deadlines. And so right now, actually, as we're speaking, I felt like I haven't published in a while, and so I decided I'm just going to like I'm writing a piece right now, and decided I'm just going to publish it next week. That's and I think it's already in the state where like I can publish it, and I'm just going to do my best to like work on it and improve it next week, and I'm just going to publish it then.
I might be wrong, but this is just like I don't know, my belief or my theory or something. You know, when AI takes over a lot of stuff that we are doing, eventually, like you know, with every passing years, there's always going to be something, an industry which will over rely on AI or whatever. But I feel like writing would be the last thing that would get affected for some reason. Because I feel like that is the last bit of human consciousness, of an expression of human consciousness that can't be taken over by AI. Of like what you think and what you put on your pen and paper, that is something that can't be put on. How you feel, I don't think AI can really take over that. So I feel like writing would be like the last thing that AI might affect us or something. You are sorry, go on.
Oh, maybe. I'm not sure. I think, I mean, AI is already doing a lot of writing, right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think
it is.
a lot of it is bad. I think in some domains, it is okay. I think again, it's like there is definitely going to be some human writing that it's going to be very difficult for AI to replicate or replace. It's probably indeed going to be like the personal stuff,
Yeah,
or like the stuff that's, I don't know, like whatever you might, whatever it is that um, depends on our humanity the most.
yeah.
But yeah.
Alexey, thank you so much. It was really wonderful. I really love what you do, your work with your blog, especially. It is I spent days just binge reading your stuff, going from one hyperlink to another hyperlink to anything. And in fact, I don't even know how I found your page. I found your page through some other 100 different like hyperlinks and things like this. And I'm really so grateful for your time. I'm just like grateful also for what you're doing in the scientific industry. It is very important, and I really hope it gets to a point where new science becomes a very loud voice in pushing the science forward. So it's very important work. So thanks a lot. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for doing this.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me. It was great to chat.